Natalie Mercer believed she had the perfect marriage. For 16 years, she had built a life with Owen that seemed enviable to everyone around them. A successful architecture firm, 2 bright teenagers, a stunning home in Seattle's Queen and district worth over $2 million. When Owen traveled to Dubai for weeks at a time, she missed him but understood it was temporary. He was building something bigger for their family's future. On March 15, 2018, while preparing their guest room for her mother's visit, Natalie discovered a second iPhone hidden behind the nightstand. What she found on that phone would reveal that her husband had been living an elaborate double life for 8 years, complete with a second wife, 2 young children, and a home in Dubai where he played the role of devoted father and husband. The truth would destroy multiple families across 2 continents and ultimately cost both Natalie and Owen their lives. At 41, Natalie commanded respect in Seattle's competitive architecture scene. She had built her firm from nothing into a team of 12 designers specializing in sustainable luxury homes. Born in Spokane, she had earned her way through the University of Washington's architecture program, graduating summa cum laude through determination and late-night construction jobs. Her sister Claire remembers Natalie as driven by an unshakable belief that everyone deserved a beautiful home, designing mansions for tech executives while volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. Natalie had met Owen Thompson during her junior year at UW. He was a senior studying international business, already fluent in Arabic and talking confidently about working overseas. Where other college men seemed directionless, Owen had a plan. He spoke of emerging markets in the Middle East, of opportunities in Dubai's rapidly expanding economy. Owen was magnetic, making everyone around him feel part of something important. After growing up with parents who played it safe, Owen's willingness to take risks was intoxicating to Natalie. By 2018, Owen Mercer appeared to be everything a woman could want in a husband. At 44, he possessed distinguished good looks that improved with age, silver threading through dark hair, intelligent brown eyes, and the easy confidence that came from years of success. His position as senior operations manager for Transglobal Shipping had taken him around the world, but Dubai had become his specialty, generating millions in revenue for the company. Owen's colleagues at Transglobal considered him their star performer. He understood Middle Eastern business culture better than anyone else, spoke fluent Arabic, and had built relationships with port authorities and shipping magnates throughout the Gulf. When other managers struggled to break into those markets, Owen made it look effortless. He would return from Dubai with incredible stories about dinners with prominent business families and negotiations that secured contracts worth tens of millions. The Dubai route went from a minor revenue stream to their most profitable operation under Owen's management. Owen's frequent trips to Dubai, sometimes lasting 3 weeks at a time, were viewed as the price of success. His colleagues envied his exotic assignment while sympathizing with the toll such travel must take on his family life. They had no idea that for Owen, those weren't business trips at all. They were trips home to his other family. The Mercer family life in Seattle painted a picture of the American dream realized. Their renovated 1920s Tudor home in Queen and had been featured in Architectural Digest, showcasing Natalie's impeccable taste. The house was filled with carefully chosen antiques, original artwork, and family photographs that told the story of 16 happy years together. Their children, Sophia and Ethan, were thriving teenagers. Sophia, 16, was captain of her debate team and had already received recruiting letters from prestigious universities. 14-year-old Ethan excelled at soccer while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Both children spoke of their father with genuine affection, understanding that his travel was necessary for their comfortable lifestyle. Owen was genuinely present when home, attending Sophia's debate tournaments and never missing Ethan's soccer games when in town. When away, he would call daily, often appearing to be in hotel rooms with Dubai's skyline glittering behind him. Those daily calls were part of Owen's carefully orchestrated performance. While Sophia and Ethan saw their father in what appeared to be hotel rooms, they had no way of knowing he was often calling from the home he shared with another family, his second wife and their children just out of frame. Despite the apparent perfection, subtle cracks had begun appearing in the Mercer marriage. Natalie had started therapy with Dr. Melissa Wong 18 months before the discovery, seeking help for a growing sense of disconnection from Owen. She was experiencing classic symptoms of a spouse whose partner is leading a double life, though neither recognized it. She felt lonely despite being married, suspicious without concrete reasons, and guilty for feeling dissatisfied with what appeared to be a successful marriage. Natalie had begun noticing small inconsistencies. Owen would return from Dubai appearing less jet-lagged than someone who had flown 14 hours should be. He seemed too comfortable navigating Dubai, too familiar with local customs for someone who claimed to spend all his time in business meetings. Most puzzling, he often returned with gifts that seemed personally selected rather than hastily purchased during airport layovers. During their last Christmas together, Owen had given Natalie a gorgeous emerald necklace, clearly expensive and obviously Middle Eastern in design. When she asked about it, he was vague about where he'd bought it. She wondered how a man constantly in meetings had time to shop for something so personal and beautiful. These small doubts accumulated in Natalie's mind, never quite enough to justify confrontation but sufficient to create persistent unease. She began paying closer attention to Owen's patterns, noting discrepancies between his described schedule and credit card charges, observing how he seemed to have insider knowledge about Dubai that went beyond business relationships. The final months before Natalie's discovery were marked by increasing emotional distance between the couple that friends and family attributed to normal pressures of a long marriage complicated by frequent separations. Neither spoke openly about their growing problems, maintaining the facade of contentment that had defined their relationship for years. In retrospect, those who knew them best could identify warning signs that seemed innocuous at the time. Owen's increasing reluctance to discuss work in detail, Natalie's growing tendency to make decisions independently, and the subtle but persistent tension that hung between them during family gatherings. None of them suspected that Owen Mercer was living two completely separate lives with remarkable skill and devastating consequences. The truth, when it finally emerged, would prove that the perfect marriage everyone envied was the most elaborate lie of all. What Natalie would discover in that second phone would set in motion a chain of events that would expose not just marital betrayal, but a complex web of deception that spanned 2 continents and involved innocent children who had no idea their family was built on lies. March 15, 2018 was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday. Natalie was preparing the guest room for her mother's weekend visit, changing sheets and organizing the space that had always served as Owen's makeshift office when he worked from home. She was looking forward to the visit. Her mother hadn't seen the family since Christmas, and Sophia's 17th birthday was approaching. Owen was scheduled to return from Dubai that Thursday, and they had planned a small celebration. As Natalie pulled the fitted sheet tight around the mattress, she heard a familiar charging sound from behind the nightstand. Reaching down to investigate, her fingers found an iPhone in a silver case, plugged into a charger she hadn't placed there. The phone was sleek, expensive, and completely unfamiliar. It wasn't hers, wasn't either of the children's, and Owen had never mentioned owning a second device. Digital forensics expert Dr. Rebecca Martinez would later examine the device and discover it contained over 3,000 photos and videos spanning 8 years. The phone's security settings had a critical flaw. While it required a passcode for most functions, the photo gallery was accessible through the emergency screen. This oversight would prove to be Owen's undoing and Natalie's gateway into a parallel world she never knew existed. What Natalie saw in those first few scrolling minutes defied comprehension. The photos told a story that seemed impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. Owen appeared in hundreds of images with a beautiful woman with long dark hair and olive skin. The earliest photos showed them as a couple romantic dinners, beach walks, intimate moments that mirrored the early days of Owen and Natalie's own relationship. But these photos were recent, time-stamped during years when Owen was supposedly building his business relationships in Dubai. As Natalie continued scrolling, the story became more devastating. Photos of the woman heavily pregnant, Owen's hand protectively placed on her belly. Images from what appeared to be a hospital room, Owen holding a newborn baby with tears of joy in his eyes. A small boy, perhaps 3 years old, running toward Owen with arms outstretched in unmistakable recognition and love. The same child, now older, learning to ride a bicycle while Owen steadied the handlebars. More recent photos showed a little girl, maybe 5 years old, blowing out candles on a birthday cake while Owen and the woman watched with parental pride. Family beach trips, playground visits, bedtime stories, an entire domestic life that Owen had been living while maintaining his marriage to Natalie. The children clearly adored him. Calling him Baba in the video clips, Natalie found herself unable to stop watching. The most devastating discovery came in a formal photo that appeared to be taken outside a government building. Owen stood beside the woman and two children, all dressed formally, Owen wearing a wedding ring that Natalie had never seen. The timestamp indicated the photo was taken 3 years earlier, during a period when Owen had told Natalie he was attending an extended shipping conference in Dubai. Natalie's hands trembled as she recognized the full scope of Owen's deception. This wasn't an affair. It was a complete parallel life. The woman wasn't a mistress. She was a wife. The children weren't the result of casual encounters. They were Owen's family, raised with the same love and attention he showed Sophia and Ethan. That evening, Natalie contacted private investigator Marcus Hayes. Her approach was methodical and deliberate. The same systematic thinking that had made her successful in architecture now applied to unraveling her husband's lies. She had already begun her own preliminary research, using the photos to identify locations and even finding the woman's social media profiles. Marcus Hayes later described Natalie as remarkably composed for someone who had just discovered such betrayal. She presented the evidence clearly, had already identified the woman as Rania El-Masri, a Lebanese-American interior designer based in Dubai, and had begun documenting inconsistencies in Owen's travel patterns and financial records. The investigation that followed revealed the stunning complexity of Owen's double life. Public records in Dubai showed that Owen had legally married Rania under a slightly altered identity, using his middle name and mother's maiden name. He held a long-term residence visa in the UAE and owned property in a suburb of Dubai where his second family lived. Bank records revealed separate accounts, shell companies, and a complex system of money transfers that had allowed him to maintain 2 expensive households on different continents. Most shocking was Rania's complete ignorance of Owen's Seattle life. When eventually contacted by investigators, she revealed that Owen had told her he was divorced from his first wife but maintained a friendly relationship for the sake of his children. She believed Natalie was his ex-wife, that his frequent trips to Seattle were business-related with occasional visits to see Sophia and Ethan. Owen had even shown Rania photos of his Seattle children, explaining them as kids he cared for from his previous marriage. The revelation devastated Rania as much as it had Natalie. For 7 years, she had built her life around a man she believed was fully committed to their family. Her children knew Owen as their devoted father, a man who worked hard to provide for them but always made time for school events, bedtime stories, and weekend adventures. The discovery that their entire family structure was built on lies would shatter not just Rania's world, but the innocent lives of 2 young children who had done nothing wrong. As the full scope of Owen's deception became clear, Natalie faced an impossible decision. Confronting Owen would destroy multiple families, expose innocent children to trauma, and potentially trigger consequences she couldn't predict. But continuing to live a lie had become unthinkable. The man she had loved and trusted for 16 years was a stranger, capable of maintaining elaborate deceptions with chilling efficiency. The perfect marriage that everyone had envied was revealed to be an expertly crafted performance, and Natalie was about to discover that when people live lies this elaborate, the truth becomes a dangerous weapon that can destroy everything in its path. The decision to travel to Dubai came to Natalie 3 days after discovering the phone. She needed to see Owen's other life with her own eyes, to understand the scope of his deception before confronting him. Working with private investigator Marcus Hayes, she planned a covert mission that would take her to the heart of Owen's parallel existence. Natalie flew to Dubai using her maiden name, staying at a hotel far from the residential area where Owen's second family lived. The city felt alien and familiar simultaneously. She recognized landmarks from Owen's business photos, restaurants he had mentioned in passing, the skyline that had served as backdrop to countless video calls home. Everything took on sinister new meaning when viewed through the lens of betrayal. Dubai-based investigator Ahmed Hassan met Natalie at her hotel, bringing additional evidence that painted a comprehensive picture of Owen's established life in the Emirates. Hassan had surveilled Owen's family for weeks, documenting their routines with professional precision. The evidence was overwhelming. Owen lived in a modern villa in Jumeirah, owned under a shell company he had created. The house was worth over $1 million, furnished with obvious care and attention to detail. Hassan showed Natalie photos of Owen's daily routine when in Dubai. He dropped the children at an expensive international school each morning, often stopping for coffee with other parents who clearly knew him well. He attended parent-teacher conferences, school plays, and weekend soccer games. In every image, Owen appeared relaxed and genuinely happy, playing the role of devoted father with convincing authenticity. The most devastating evidence came from Hassan's surveillance of a typical family weekend. Owen had taken Rania and the children to Dubai Mall, where they shopped, ate dinner, and visited the aquarium like any normal family. The photos showed intimate moments, Owen carrying his sleeping daughter, teaching his son to ice skate, sharing private jokes with Rania. The man in these images seemed more genuine than the Owen that Natalie had known in Seattle. While Natalie struggled with the emotional reality of Owen's betrayal, financial investigator Rebecca Torres was unraveling the complex web of Owen's monetary deceptions. Torres had worked white-collar crime cases for 15 years, but Owen's financial structure impressed her with its sophistication and audacity. He had created multiple shell companies, offshore accounts, and investment vehicles that allowed him to funnel money between his two lives without detection. The investigation revealed that Owen had been using his position at Transglobal Shipping to facilitate money laundering operations. Fake shipping contracts generated millions in revenue that Owen skimmed through his various companies. He had real estate investments in both Seattle and Dubai, luxury vehicles registered under different names, and bank accounts in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands. Most shocking to Natalie was Torres's discovery that their Seattle home, which she believed was fully paid for, actually carried multiple mortgages Owen had taken without her knowledge. He had borrowed against the property repeatedly, using the funds to purchase the Dubai villa and maintain his expensive lifestyle in the Emirates. The financial house of cards was elaborate but ultimately unsustainable. Natalie began working with attorney David Kim to build a comprehensive legal case. Kim specialized in international family law and white-collar crime, uniquely qualified to handle the complexity of Owen's deceptions. The evidence they compiled was staggering: documentation of bigamy, financial fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. Kim explained that Owen faced potential criminal charges in multiple jurisdictions, with possible prison sentences that could span decades. The challenge lay in international law regarding marriage and property rights. Owen's Dubai marriage was legal under UAE law, but his failure to divorce Natalie first constituted bigamy in Washington state. Property ownership across international boundaries complicated asset recovery, and Kim warned that litigation could take years to resolve. Kim advised Natalie about the potential criminal charges Owen could face, but also cautioned her about the collateral damage such prosecution might cause. The investigation would expose Rania and her children to public scrutiny, potentially destroying their lives through no fault of their own. Natalie found herself torn between seeking justice for Owen's betrayals and protecting innocent victims of his deceptions. As March progressed toward the confrontation Natalie knew was inevitable, she carefully prepared for what would likely be the most important conversation of her life. Sister Claire watched Natalie's transformation during this period, noting how her sister had become focused and determined in a way that was both admirable and frightening. Natalie was methodical in her preparation, consulting with therapist Dr. Wong about the psychological aspects of confronting a pathological liar. Dr. Wong helped Natalie understand that Owen's capacity for deception indicated a personality disorder that might make him unpredictable when cornered. Natalie decided to give Owen 24 hours to explain the truth to their children before she would contact Rania directly. She arranged all evidence carefully in their dining room, creating an undeniable presentation of Owen's double life that would make denial impossible. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of multiple families across 2 continents. Natalie had uncovered the truth, built her case, and prepared for battle. What she couldn't prepare for was how dangerous Owen would become when his carefully constructed world began to crumble around him. March 28, 2018 arrived with the weight of inevitability. Natalie had spent days preparing for this moment, arranging the evidence with the same precision she applied to architectural blueprints. The dining room table became a gallery of Owen's deceptions, photographs printed and organized chronologically, financial documents highlighted and tabbed, legal papers documenting his Dubai marriage arranged in neat stacks. Each piece of evidence told part of the story, but together they painted a picture of betrayal so comprehensive that denial would be impossible. Owen returned from Dubai at 7 in the evening, wheeling his familiar black suitcase through the front door with the easy confidence of a man who believed his secrets were safe. His welcoming smile faltered the moment he saw Natalie sitting rigidly at the dining room table, her face pale but determined. The color drained from his features as his eyes moved across the carefully arranged evidence spread before her. For several seconds, Owen stood frozen in the doorway, his mind clearly racing to process what he was seeing. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, he moved into damage control mode. His initial response was predictable denial mixed with confusion. He claimed the photos were fabricated, that someone was trying to frame him, that the financial documents must be forged. But even as the words left his mouth, Owen seemed to realize how hollow they sounded in the face of such overwhelming evidence. When denial proved futile, Owen's strategy shifted to minimization and justification. He claimed the Dubai marriage had started as a business arrangement, a fake union designed to secure better visa terms and business opportunities in the Emirates. What began as a practical deception had become complicated when he genuinely fell in love with Rania. He insisted he had never intended for things to go so far, that he had always planned to find a way to end the arrangement before anyone got hurt. Owen's explanations became increasingly desperate as he realized Natalie wasn't responding to his usual manipulation tactics. He blamed Natalie's career focus for driving him to seek companionship elsewhere, claimed he had been protecting both families by maintaining the separation, and promised he could fix everything if she would just give him time. His words revealed a narcissistic personality that viewed himself as the victim of circumstances beyond his control rather than the architect of elaborate deceptions. As Owen continued his explanations, Natalie watched the man she had loved for 16 years transform before her eyes. The charm and confidence that had once attracted her now seemed sinister, calculated performances designed to manipulate rather than genuine expressions of emotion. She began to understand that Owen's capacity for deception went far deeper than infidelity. He was fundamentally dishonest, capable of living multiple lies simultaneously without apparent psychological strain. When Owen realized that his explanations weren't working, when he saw the steel in Natalie's eyes that indicated she would not be swayed by his manipulation, his demeanor changed entirely. Natalie delivered her ultimatum with quiet firmness. Owen had 24 hours to tell their children the truth about his double life. After that, she would explain everything to Sophia and Ethan herself, and she would contact Rania to reveal Owen's Seattle family. Owen's response revealed the dangerous man lurking beneath his polished exterior. His pleading turned to anger, his voice taking on a threatening edge that Natalie had never heard before. He warned her to think carefully about her next moves, reminding her that he controlled most of their finances, that a custody battle could destroy their children's futures, and that her actions would have consequences she couldn't imagine. The threats were veiled but unmistakable. That night, Natalie called her sister Claire with words that would haunt the family forever. She told Claire that if anything happened to her, Owen was responsible. Claire later recalled the fear in her sister's voice, a tremor that spoke to Natalie's growing recognition that she had cornered a man capable of extreme measures. The final confrontation came the following evening when Owen returned home to find that Natalie had not changed her position. His psychological state had deteriorated overnight, oscillating between desperate pleading and cold rage. When he realized that 16 years of marriage and manipulation held no power over Natalie's resolve, Owen's carefully maintained mask slipped completely. The man who emerged was calculating and cruel, speaking of consequences and choices with the detached tone of someone making business decisions rather than discussing the destruction of families. His final words before storming out of the house carried an ominous weight that left Natalie genuinely frightened for her safety. Owen's parting threat was subtle but clear. Natalie had chosen to destroy their life together, and she would have to live with the consequences of that choice. As his car pulled out of the driveway that night, both Owen and Natalie understood that they had reached a point of no return. The elaborate deception that had sustained Owen's double life for 8 years was crumbling, and he would do whatever was necessary to prevent complete exposure. Neither of them knew that Owen had already decided the consequences would be fatal. March 30th, 2018 arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of Seattle morning that seemed to absorb sound and hope in equal measure. Natalie had spent a restless night in the guest bedroom, unable to sleep in the bed she had shared with Owen for so many years. The 24-hour deadline she had given him was approaching, and she had steeled herself for the difficult conversation with Sophia and Ethan that evening. At approximately 2:15 p.m., while Natalie worked in her home office reviewing architectural plans for a client meeting, Owen returned to the house. Neighbors later reported hearing his car in the driveway but thought nothing of it. Owen's comings and goings had always been unpredictable due to his travel schedule. What they didn't see was Owen entering through the back door, using his key for what would be the final time. Natalie's body was discovered by her assistant, Monica Chun, who had come to deliver project files for Monday's client presentation. Monica found Natalie slumped over her desk in the home office, a single gunshot wound to her head, a revolver lying nearby on the hardwood floor. The scene had been carefully staged to suggest suicide. A note typed on Natalie's computer apologized for the pain she was causing and claimed she couldn't live with the shame of her marriage's failure. Detective Mason Holloway arrived at the scene within 30 minutes of Monica's frantic 911 call. A 20-year veteran of the King County Sheriff's Office, Holloway immediately recognized inconsistencies that suggested murder rather than suicide. The weapon showed no fingerprints, despite supposedly being fired by Natalie. Gunshot residue tests on Natalie's hands came back negative. Most telling, the angle of the wound was wrong for a self-inflicted gunshot, suggesting the shooter had been standing slightly behind and to the right of Natalie's position. Security camera footage from the neighbor across the street provided the crucial evidence. The timestamp showed Owen's BMW entering the Mercer driveway at 2:08 p.m., but no camera had captured him leaving. Additional investigation revealed that Owen had exited through the wooded area behind the house, walking nearly half a mile through residential neighborhoods before calling an Uber from a coffee shop. 6 hours after Natalie's murder, Owen Mercer was found dead in his car in the Transglobal Shipping parking garage. He had used exhaust fumes to end his life, carbon monoxide filling the sealed vehicle while he sat in the driver's seat. On the passenger seat, investigators found 2 handwritten notes, one addressed to his Seattle children, expressing love and apologizing for the pain he was causing, and another to Rania, asking her not to believe the lies that would emerge about him. The most revealing evidence came from a thorough search of the Mercer home. Hidden in the ceiling vent of the home office where Natalie died, investigators discovered a third note filled with rage and blame. In Owen's handwriting, the letter accused Natalie of forcing his hand, of being too selfish to understand the complexity of his situation. The note revealed Owen's complete inability to accept responsibility for his actions, instead portraying himself as a victim of circumstances beyond his control. Detective Holloway's investigation reconstructed Owen's final day with chilling precision. After leaving the house following his confrontation with Natalie, Owen had driven to a sporting goods store where he purchased the revolver using a fake identification. He had spent the night in a hotel, likely planning the murder and composing his suicide notes. The timeline showed careful premeditation rather than a crime of passion. The aftermath of the murder-suicide devastated multiple families across 2 continents. Rania Al-Masri's statement to Dubai police revealed her complete shock at learning about Natalie's existence. She had genuinely believed Owen's story about his previous marriage ending years earlier. The discovery that her husband was not only a bigamist but a murderer shattered her understanding of the man she had loved and the father of her children. In Seattle, Sophia and Ethan Mercer moved in with their Aunt Claire, struggling to comprehend how their father could have destroyed so many lives. The teenagers faced not only the loss of both parents but the revelation that their entire family structure had been built on lies. Natalie's architecture firm dissolved within months, unable to continue without its founding partner. The family home was sold to pay legal fees and settle debts. Rania faced her own impossible situation in Dubai, explaining to 2 young children why their father would never come home again while shielding them from the full truth of his crimes. The villa Owen had purchased was seized by authorities investigating his financial crimes, forcing Rania to rebuild her life from nothing while caring for traumatized children. Claire Davidson's final words about her sister capture the tragic irony of Natalie's story. Natalie had always believed that truth would set her free, that honesty was the foundation of any meaningful relationship. Her pursuit of that truth ultimately led to her death at the hands of a man who had built his entire existence on deception. The case serves as a stark reminder that cornering someone who has lived elaborate lies for years can trigger desperate and violent responses. Owen Mercer's inability to face the consequences of his actions turned personal betrayal into murder, destroying innocent lives across 2 continents and leaving children in both families to grow up without the parents they had loved and trusted. The perfect